New research suggests that if you want to raise the voter turnout, one of the best ways to do so would be lower the voting age to 16. Now, many of you know that Andrew Yang's, one of his platform ideas was to lower the voting age to 16. You know, it's about having a long-term strategy. This isn't about just we have a great candidate, so people are going to be fired up. Like, we need to have a long-term solution for increasing voter turnout, to having more informed voters, and to be able to have people be more engaged in their political process. And ironically, Andrew Yang tweeted this, saying that this is about, it suggests that the voting age should be lowered. But primarily, this entire article is about a study from the Knight Foundation, where they polled 13,000 people across the country to figure out why non-voters don't vote. And there's just so much good information here. The average chronic non-voter is a married, non-religious white woman between 56 and 73 who works full-time but makes $50,000 a year, or makes less than $50,000 a year. She is most likely to self-identify as a moderate, lean toward the Democratic Party, get her news from television, and have a very unfavorable impression of both political parties and Donald Trump. He also said she has a 77% chance of being registered to vote, and says she doesn't because she doesn't like the candidates, but claims to be certain she will vote in November. It suggests non-voters, defined as eligible adults 25 or older who have voted in no more than one federal election since 2008, are clustered into distinctive camps, with disparate political leanings and some levels of interest in participating. Basically, they're suggesting that both parties have an opportunity here to grow their base. And again, this article is not primarily about lowering the voting age. That's literally like 4 or 5 lines at the very, very end of this article. But it gives you a ton of information about typical non-voters, how you can get people engaged. We talked yesterday about Bernie Sanders and his plan to win in 2020 was based on bringing out was increasing voter turnout. Well, that's kind of what this article is against. It's like it's not about, hey, let's just have one really big cycle with really big ideas, or a really great candidate where you have like a Trump or an Obama or whoever. No. We need to lower the voting age, because if you lower the voting age, what ends up happening is you create a culture around voting where people they feel like they're part of the process. They engage in not only the federal elections, they're looking at local stuff, and they're actually interested. Once you typically fall out of awareness of what's going on politically, many people just feel like, okay, well, I'm not engaged enough to even vote. I'm not educated, so I'm not going to do it. You're 15, you're in class still, you're still in high school. There's classes that you can build around this. There's different activities that you can build into it. And you kind of walk away from high school having already voted in probably 2 elections. And hopefully, you carry that into later life. I guess they're saying back in the 1800s, turnout in presidential elections sometimes exceeded 80% in the mid-19th century. But women, men, between 1821, most African Americans, Native Americans, the overwhelming majority of adults were barred from participating. The biggest reason turnout increased in the 21st century, it hit 61.6% of eligible voters in 2008 and 60.1% in 2016, appears to be campaigns have returned to knocking on doors and connecting with voters as individuals. This just tells us one of the reasons that people aren't voting is because they weren't being asked to vote. Campaigns' job is to convince people their vote matters and that they're a part of something. Non-voters are less likely to volunteer in their community, attend weekly church services, or have recently collaborated with others to solve a local problem. They're less likely to have been asked to vote, or far less likely to have been asked by a campaigner. Further, 76% of non-voters also told Knight that the voting process in their state was easy, with 46% saying it's very easy. Non-voters generally don't feel any such obligation to stay informed. Like voters, the majority of them see bias in the media, but they're less likely to seek out more information to compensate. The Knight study found 73% of voters seek out new information compared to only 56% of non-voters. Focus groups of non-voters said that their own dearth of knowledge was a major disincentive to voting, not voting. One Las Vegas man told them it's better to be not voting. One Las Vegas man told them it's better than being an uneducated voter. The bad news experts say is that if you don't seek out news, there are dwindling opportunities to bump into it by accident. Now, we know that there are people like you guys who are interested, who come here and you're looking to learn some information, or you're following, you're picking up the paper, But then there's everybody else. It's so much distraction when you got your Netflixes and you got your YouTube loop that you can watch, and there's a million things to do in the world today, especially with all of the content that's constantly being thrown at you. So if you choose to come out and become more educated politically, kudos on you. But it's a hard decision, and we understand that, or at least people who benefit from you not understanding really understand it, and they don't care. But the people who want you to become engaged understand that if we don't have that component, everybody loses. Charismatic candidate like Trump or Obama can jolt one segment of the electorate off the sidelines, but to make a more universal and lasting impact on voting tendencies, smart money may be in building civic education, knowledge, and expectations in secondary schools. So again, that just goes along with Andrew Yang's thought that we needed to lower the voting age to 16. It wasn't a gimmicky policy. I know he had some wacky stuff in there. He wanted to get rid of the penny. He wanted to make sure NCAA athletes can get paid. Not really gimmicks, but when you hear these things on a presidential campaign or a presidential platform, you're just like, huh, why is that there? The reality is Andrew Yang chose his platform very carefully. It was rooted in research and information, and he didn't want to do this just because he thought that it would help him. He did this, or he suggested this, because he knew that it would help out society as a whole, not just short term, but for the long term. Once people get into the mindset of, okay, yeah, voting day is coming around, I need to participate, I need to make sure I'm educated, that will be something that they will take with them throughout life, and hopefully we can be able to raise the amount of people who are showing up to vote. You really got to go down to those city council meetings. You got to be aware, you got to be involved, and you got to make sure that the people who are moving into your town are not taking advantage of your community. People have life. I just think that when you have issues like the voter suppression that comes from people who've been in prison, or gerrymandering, and then just the general disinterest in politics, or people just being disillusioned with the process as a whole. I mean, we just saw what happened in Iowa. There's a lot of reasons for people not to bother dealing with trying to vote, and I understand it. But as the article mentions, when you have people coming out to your neighborhood and telling them, hey man, your vote's super important, I need you on this issue, it makes people feel like their vote matters again. It makes them feel like they're a part of the process. I gotta say, being a part of this election the last 6 months or so, it's the first time I felt like an American in a long time, since 9/11. It's been a long time since seeing an American flag gave me pride. When you get out and you see people and you talk to people across the spectrum and they got ideas, and it's not a hate fest or anything like that. It's just, hey, even when I went to the Bloomberg rally, it was just cool to talk to people who have different ideas and, hear that ultimately we all want the same thing. They just want a better country. It's not like they disagree with me because they don't like me. It's like, no, they disagree with me because the candidate that they're choosing is better for them. But we all have the same goal, and we need that. We need people to feel like they're a part of the process, and we shouldn't be trying to exclude them because their vote will mess up what we got going on. And that's what we have right now. We have too much of, if too many people vote, or if people from this district vote, they're going to mess up this grant I'm trying to get. And that's not what it should be. It should be, I'm doing this because it benefits me, but it also benefits the community. And if the community wins, then everybody wins.